Thank you, Stefan. Hello, CET community. I'm Michelle Bolton, Director of A&D Strategy for Kimball International Workplace, representing National, etc. in Kimball. I'm honored to share some insight and perspective with you today about our path forward. You know, we find ourselves in month 8 of this pandemic, and the only constant seems to be change. Now, I don't have a crystal ball or a flux capacitor to help predict the future, but I have been keeping tabs on what's going on in the world of work and hope to share a view with you today that helps you design our future of tomorrow. As an interior designer myself, I believe design is mankind's problem solver. As designers, we look at big problems like the future of work as a whole and use critical design thinking methodologies to solve the myriad of problems that come our way. Like it says here, designers, we get the job done. Hashtag sorry not sorry Hamill fan. As fellow design thinkers, our goal is to lead with empathy and improve the lives of others. We seek to figure out fresh, creative solutions to problems, but in a way that puts people and their needs first. That's what design thinking is all about. Since kindergarten, we have been taught to deploy the 5 W's of critical problem solving: who, what, when, where, and why. And because design thinking is a dynamic problem solving framework, I want to take a look at these fundamental problem solving questions again, but this time through a COVID era lens to understand the who, what, when, where, and why of work. Not examining these things would imply ignorance and involuntary action as it pertains to designing for the future of work. And as designers, we are anything but ignorant. So let's rework the 5 W's. We will start with the humans who do the work. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to work differently and evolve far more quickly in the way we're dealing with people in the workplace. For example, the pandemic has shifted the trajectory of who will be in the workplace for years to come. More workers across all spectrums are finding themselves desiring to be a part of the workforce. Take Gen Z college students, for example. This group finds themselves in a place where their careers are derailed, their finances may be shattered, and social lives upended. Many are having to enter the full-time workforce earlier than expected to help their family income. Many millennials are in the prime season for starting a family. Prior to COVID, some may have chosen to move to a one-income family and have a parent home with the kids. However, as jobs are lost and savings are depleted, mothers and fathers who are at home are re-entering out of necessity. Then there are the baby boomers. This generation was close to retirement or already retired and are now finding themselves having to postpone retirement or even re-enter the workforce due to economic loss. Now, it's nothing new to talk about multiple generations in the workplace, but what is new is the length of time that these people will be working together and how they cope with a COVID world at work that is often virtual and highly digitized. These demographic implications are enormous for employers. They have to be able to support all workers in a post-COVID world. Take a look at some of the differences in these generations, for example. The gap looms large between everything from leadership style. We have directing on one side and empowering on the other, to learning style, from structured to multimodal. Or how about communication styles? We have the telephone on one end and a whole lot of emojis on the other. And we can't forget about slang terms, from groovy to as if to fashiz to goat. These groups are very different from one another in all the ways shown here, but also in the way that they are affected by COVID. The need for psychological safety and physical wellness in the workplace may be brought to life a little differently when taking all these generational nuances into consideration. In the early days of the pandemic, many employers adopted or promoted programs to support mental health, physical health, social connectivity, collaboration tools, and family care. These programs will need to continue, but may need to evolve to support the challenging demographic state. Now is not the time to let up on this care and compassion for the humans who do the work. And while these issues are serious and need to be considered, there's also a real positive opportunity from this to connect these generations in an intentional way for the betterment of both. Designers can help cultivate places and spaces to support cross-generational mentorships and relationships that will last a lifetime. Moving on, let's examine what kind of work is happening. As the nation starts to recover from massive unemployment rates, the humans we just discussed are looking for jobs in every category there is, whether traditional full-time, secondary part-time, side hustle, or contract work. The economy is reopening and life is slowly getting back on track, but it's not back to normal. High unemployment rates and the need to socially distance will have lasting effects. Experts predict that post-pandemic, these trends will continue as we shift toward a more precarious gig economy that relies heavily on the internet. This new normal may usher in a shift away from solely having a full-time job to more of a world with many side hustles and multiple gigs. How many of you or your friends have Shopify stores, Etsy shops, or farmers market side swaps? Simply put, an influx of holding down multiple jobs is on the rise. And in the case of a labor market that's gone topsy-turvy in recent months, the silver lining that needs to be coming from it is the raw creativity of America's workforce in finding work, even when traditional jobs are hard to come by. As a matter of fact, the US Census is releasing its Q3 2020 business information data tomorrow. Based on the most recent data, people have been getting their startup on. Through the 40th week of 2020, business applications were up a record 40% year over year. It wouldn't be the first time a crisis led to some banger startups. Airbnb and Groupon were founded in 2008, for example. WhatsApp, Uber, Slack, Venmo, and Square all launched in 2009. Many U.S. workers have created what can best be called a side hustle renaissance, with very different types of gigs performed by very different kinds of workers than in years past, resulting in a whole host of peculiar and possibly irregular job types. These pandemicpreneurs are creating COVID-specific jobs like social distance monitors or temperature takers. Or it's getting a little bit more peculiar, and they're becoming pro-survey takers for top brands, specialized deliverers of durian fruit, kombucha, or booze, or charcuterie and cheese board makers. As people keep side hustling, they might find themselves taking clients away from the very businesses they work for in their main hustle. After all, the show must go on for all of us. Next up, When. Now, some of you may know this movie, some of you may not, but this December marks the 40th birthday of the classic 80s office satire movie, 9 to 5. The common 9 to 5 office hours are steeped in tradition and have been part of a professional working lives since the 1920s. But like many other things, this traditional schedule is being pressured. With grade school happening in living rooms, elderly parents needing groceries, and neighbors needing regular assistance, working traditional hours simply doesn't work for many people. Some employees may need to work from 6 a.m. to 10 in the morning and then unplug for family time until their 8 to midnight shift. Plus, pick up a couple hours on the weekend to get the job done. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced enterprises around the world into arrangements that break all kinds of traditional working habits. Millions of employees are now working from home and collaborating with colleagues via video conferencing. The conventional 9 to 5 working day and Monday to Friday working week has been disrupted, at least for the time being, and a new work-life rhythm is forming. Managing expectations has become even harder. All of a sudden, we're workers, teachers, parents, providers, Zoom party planners, professional scrub, all things cleaners. Should we try and keep up? Do we have a choice? How do we find balance? Is this good for our sanity? The truth is, workers may want to forget about balance and instead go on a quest for harmony. Balance assumes that we spend an equal amount of time in all or most areas of our life. The problem with this is that most people can't actually achieve this on a regular basis. We tend to live such hectic, busy lives that it is incredibly difficult to fit it all in. But there's good news. We can strive for harmony. This is more than semantics. It is a different way of looking at life. It's possible to create a life that is in harmony with your values and vision of who you are and what you want to do. Workers coming out of this pandemic will find themselves seeking harmony over balance. I believe in harmony, in finding ways to create synergy between the things you love to do and the things you're paid to do. And if we're lucky, those things are one and the same. Moving on, our next W is where. While the concept of flexible and remote work has been steadily increasing over the past 5 to 10 years, this pandemic has accelerated that notion and pushed the boundaries of where work happens to a hybrid and more fluid method. This presents a real opportunity. Hybrid work models, done right, allow organizations to better recruit talent, achieve innovation, and create value for all stakeholders. By acting boldly now, they can define a future of work that is more flexible, digital, and purposeful. But it can't just be about giving employees a hybrid option to work from campus headquarters or a satellite office or a gym cafe, co-working space, or even a person's bed on any given day. It needs to be more fluid than that based on everything we've learned thus far about who is working, what types of jobs they're doing, and when they are doing them. Employees might need to hit 3 or 4 of those destinations on any given day based on the work-life rhythm circumstances. This shift places even greater importance on positioning spaces and places to safely foster collaboration, efficiency, and culture building, whether workers are meeting in person at the office, dialing in from the local coffee shop, or laptop lounging in their pajamas at home. Employers must experiment with a range of solutions to address these diverse needs and concerns. Oh dear. The other change worth mentioning around where people work is the notion that work no longer needs to define where someone lives. Historically, people lived where they lived because it was where they worked. That is getting turned on its head too. This means your dream to move to the Serengeti is one step closer. Or maybe your thing is sandy beaches. Well, recently, the Caribbean island of Barbados, aka Riri's hometown, toyed with the idea of introducing a welcome stamp to allow visitors the option to work remotely from Barbados for a year at a time. If you're looking at a future of permanently hybrid and fluid work, the idea of tapping away on your laptop from a breezy sandy beach might sound more appealing than a noisy high-rent apartment in the US. Speaking of high-rent apartments, let's move on to my next point. The geography where we work in the US is morphing. After years of relatively steady urbanization, we are starting to see things change and are seeing more hiring outside the big metro cities and into suburban and rural areas. Once outside of major metro cities, there are a lot of pools of affordable workers to tap into. This factor can redistribute work opportunity. There are a lot of people who in the past would have had to move to where the businesses were. Now, with a lot more businesses actually hiring remote, the access to opportunity across the US might expand. And planting new roots in places like this rural flyover state might be the perfect fit for the most recent tech guru out there. Finally, let's talk about the why. While many Americans complain about their work, they often like doing it for reasons beyond just bringing in money. Whether that means sharing their opinions for profit, delivering rare fruit or booze by bike, or finding a way to present perfect prosciutto, an increasing number of US workers are finding jobs that provide fulfillment while utilizing tech and a lot of creativity. Employee motivation is the level of energy, commitment, and creativity that a company's workers bring to their jobs. While work does blur with life, the expectations we bring to work are more than just a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. It's also about social needs, self-actualization, and the contribution we can make to our community. Employees need a sense of purpose. The emergence of purpose as a driving force is particularly compelling given its overarching impact on all aspects of work and business. Workers today look to have multiple needs met at work. Sure, it's about achieving task outcomes and receiving financial rewards, but it's becoming more about finding social connection, experiencing the richness of inclusivity, participating in a community, demanding social justice, building a team of generosity, or contributing to environmental sustainability. A sense of purpose can help employees navigate high levels of uncertainty and change and ensure that their efforts are aligned with the highest value activities. As designers, we can help connect people to something bigger than themselves and help them contribute in meaningful ways that bring joy. Like a whole generation changed after the Great Depression, our behaviors are likely going to change forever from this COVID-19 pandemic. Long after the virus is gone, we will probably still see people being much more conservative and careful about savings and stability. But we will also probably see people rising up and using their voices to make lasting changes they believe in all aspects of their life, work included. For this reason, I encourage you to start your design framework with why. And so, CET experience attendees, I'll leave you with this final notion. As designers and fellow problem solvers, I hope these insights have sparked your curiosity and perhaps dusted off old ideas. I hope this perspective helps you produce new ideas and place them in a new context. And I hope our time today helps you demonstrate the power of design to create spaces and places that support the who, what, when, where, and why of work. How are you going to do this, you might ask? Well, that's up to you. The choice is yours. Thank you for your time today, and I wish you all an engaging, insightful, and harmonious conference. And now I'll turn you over to Johan for the keynote, 30 Years of Making a Difference. Thanks.